I wasn't even thinking about music. You know, I was just growing up as a young man. And we used to hang out as young people.
For a long time, everyone thought Burning Spear was at peace with every star in the reggae music industry, not knowing there was much he had to let off his chest. However, now at 80, he could no longer hold it in anymore, and, in a distasteful way, unpacked the names of the 9 reggae artists he hated the most. Fans are surprised, and the community is in a state of shock. Why didn't he say this earlier? Let's find out. Unbelievable exposition. It was no small dissension when fans first heard the unbelievable story that emerged from Burning Spear's vocal cords. It still seems like a fairy tale, as no one has come to terms with the fact that such a story could spill out of his mouth. This was because Spear was seen as a different reggae artist compared to the many who pride themselves on the numerous discord they have with their fellow reggae artists. While others were busy pointing accusing fingers at each other, Spear was all about bringing perspective with his music. However, the news of his mentioning the 9 reggae artists he hated the most sent shockwaves through the community, more so than when they faced the saddest news. It was too unreal to be true. However, when fans dug deeper, they realized that this pain had been nurtured for decades, waiting for the right time to spill the truth. For decades, he swallowed the disgrace, the misdemeanors, the challenges these artists threw at his face as if he was going to let everything slide indefinitely. However, what fans couldn't wrap their heads around were the names he mentioned. The shocker of it all was how this exposition bruised their egos. Could it be Stranger Cole, Cornell Campbell, or perhaps Silford Walker? How did they fall into the bad books of Burning? Stay tuned as we unveil the details soon. However, before then, let's find out more about who Burning Spear is. Musical journey.
Last year, you did a very extensive tour across the United States and, of course, into Europe, the Fan Appreciation Tour. And was it the energy of the people?
Not often do we see artists who are ready to give it all to their craft, no matter what confronts them, but Burning Spear swam through the tides of life to achieve greatness. The struggles that come with every season in life were only a platform to further stratify the passion for what he loves. His quest for undeniable results from the beginning was glaringly evident, and anyone who saw him championing his musical movements from an early stage would have been able to tell that he could make it. Spear's career actually began when he met his friend and bass singer, Rupert Wellington. Their friendship was a natural occurrence, a divine orchestration that advanced the destiny of a man. As their friendship grew, they realized they were being drawn in the same direction. And within a short while, they had built something substantial. Burning Spear was originally Rodney's group, named after a military award given by Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of an independent Kenya. However, Burning Spear and Wellington held on to the name, and it became their trademark. The duo knew that potential lay within them, but if they refused to harness it, they would fail utterly, like a pack of discarded cards. So they auditioned for Dodd in 1969, and within a short while, they released their debut single, Door Peep, which featured Cedric Brooks on saxophone. As they grew as a team, other members of the group began to find their place gradually. Delroy Hines, who became the tenor singer in the group, joined them, and they began to make good music. The trio embarked on a musical journey to greatness and were determined never to stop until they achieved their envisioned status of greatness. They recorded more singles as a group, and each reflected the genuineness of lyrics, expertise, and unusual melodies that brought life to their hearers. They also recorded 2 albums before moving on to work with Jack Ruby in 1975. Then their message was getting a head start, and their reception was quite undeniable at the time. Meeting Ruby and Marcus Garvey was something they never expected at the time. However, it marked a turning point in their careers. Working with him in 1975 was something they never envisaged, but their first single together opened doors unimaginable. Their first recording with the legend, which was supposed to be an exclusive track for Ruby's Ochio-based high-power sound system, was released as a single, giving them their first ever hit, and was followed by Slavery Days. They continued to enjoy Onward Bliss, and their fan base grew from nothing to something. Most of their recordings featured the backing band, the Black Disciples, which included Earl Chinna Smith, Valentine Chin, Robbie Shakespeare, and Leroy Wallace. They made every one of their songs palpable, and fans couldn't get enough of all their spiritual investments. What began as a joke for the group was now bringing them before the face of the public. Due to the massive reception, the group continued their relationship with Ruby, leading them to release a third album, Marcus Garvey, in 1975, which, just as they envisioned, was really successful. It sold even more than they expected, landing them on a negotiation table that further increased their profile. They got to the table with Island Records and struck a deal that further enhanced their album. Island took responsibility for some of their songs and altered the speed of some of the tracks. Fans were disappointed by their choice of action, but it didn't stop what they had already begun. The group was somehow infuriated by the plans, considering that they had always maintained a formidable presence with their style of music. For a while, they worked with Island Records, but when they saw they couldn't cope again, they made their own decision. Rodney, also known as Burning Spear, took the helm of affairs and formed his own music label, Burning Music, where he could have control over their future releases. This development didn't work immediately, but somehow became visible after the release of Garvey Ghost, a dub version of the Marcus Garvey album and Man in the Hills. However, this new development lasted only briefly, and before the group members knew what was happening, they were already in the midst of a potential split. In late 1976, Rodney took a bow and split from both Ruby and group members Hines and Wellington, and from that point, used the name Burning Spear for himself alone. Career achievements.
And it's my duty to continue to do what needed to be done with the music and through the music.
From the moment Burning started his musical career to his involvement in the group, his passion for greatness was always nurtured by what he wanted to achieve. He has always believed that there was nothing unachievable, especially if one sets their heart to it. When the group finally split, starting all over by himself didn't become a problem. He never struggled with it, nor did he have to endure several pressures that continued from where he left off. This new adventure of his opened a new page for him, and he was ready to move without delay. Burning released Dry and Heavy in 1977. This was also a subsidiary of his production. Nevertheless, he was partly a member of Island, and with a sizable fan base in the United Kingdom, he was able to perform in London. This he also did with members of Aswad acting as his backing band for a sold-out show at the Rainbow Theatre, which was recorded and released as the album Live. The partnership between Burning Spear and Aswad was further solidified over time, resulting in collaborations on other projects. They were part of his next album, Social Living, in 1978, which also featured Sly Dunbar and Rico Rodriguez. It was a project that many couldn't help but love, every bit of it. A dub version of the album, Living Dub, was released in 1979 and was mixed by Sylvia Morris. By this time, it was clear to everyone that Spear was on a fast lane, and nothing was ever going to let him slow down. With every passing day, his fan base grew stronger, and all their expectations were met without further hesitation. His profile was further elevated by an appearance in the film Rockers, where he performed Jah No Dead. Knowing the time was right for him to set things right, in 1980, Rodney left Island Records and set up Burning Music Production, a project that he had carried for many years. It was a new development away from what he was known for. This music production had an affiliation with EMI, debuting on the label with Hail HIM. The song was recorded at Marley Tough Gong Studio and co-produced by Aston Barrett. Things went from 0 to 100 real quick, and just as they saw that diligence eats the greater cake, Spear was having it in bulk. A Sylvan Morris dub version followed in the form of Living Dub Volume 2. In 1982, Spear signed with Heartbeat Records, and in no particular order, hits began to drop, with a series of well-received albums, including the 1985 Grammy-nominated Resistance. Spear did well in his new venture, but after a while, he returned to Island Records. Why he chose to do so was unknown, but he eventually returned and continued his interaction with them. His return happened in the early 1990s, releasing 2 albums before rejoining Heartbeat. How he managed to juggle between the 2 labels without clashing with both parties is something no one could understand. But somehow he managed to pull through. When Heartbeat ceased releasing new material, Burning Music took matters into its own hands and began to release music solely through its own imprint. Albums released by Heartbeat through an agreement with Burning Music include The World Should Know in 1993, Rasta Business in 1994, 1995, Appointment with His Majesty, in 1997, and the Grammy Award-winning Calling Rastafari in 1999, which was the last completed album to be solely pressed by an outside label. Burning was moving at high speed, and nothing was going to stop him from firing on all cylinders as the day went by. Eventually, Burning became a worldwide sensation, spent decades touring extensively, and several live albums became his dwelling place. As he and his crew traveled the world and performed on various platforms, their skills became more sophisticated with each passing day. By this time, it was evident that Burning was a voice for his generation, and nothing was going to stop that feat. His sound was unique, and even though he occasionally switched between genres, including reggae, jazz, funk, and psychedelic, his feet were immovable when it came to thrilling his fans. He was loved by all and sundry, and just by the day his fame spread abroad in peaceful contemplations. His musical prowess was always top-notch, and his delivery was second to none. His 1999 album brought him his first Grammy in 2000, and by this time, his name began to ring a bell on the streets of the world's greatest music industries. His tours were fun to watch, as he regularly invited great minds like him to share the center stage with him. Artists like Joseph Hill were close friends of his, and together they developed a stable working relationship, collaborating on various projects. In 2002, he and his wife, Sonia Rodney, who had produced several of his albums, restarted Burning Music Records, giving him a greater degree of artistic control. This marked a great turnaround in his music, as there was no more room for exploitation. The Rodneys were now at liberty to handle any project of theirs, with rights and compensation hitting directly to their pockets. This led to Burning settling in New York, and according to reliable information, he has been living there ever since. Burning was awarded the Order of Distinction in the rank of officer on the 15th of October, 2007, and ever since, Burning has not stopped making good music. In the history of reggae music, he remains not just an icon, but a pathway for upcoming generations. Since establishing his record with his wife, he has released nearly 40 singles, CDs, DVDs, and vinyl albums on the Burning Music imprint. Many of these albums are deluxe editions of previously released albums, often featuring bonus tracks and DVD footage. As time went on, Burning continued to transform the music industry with his sound, and fans would seek no one else but the legend himself. But just when they were expecting him to continue his flawless sound, he announced that his retirement was just around the corner. 2016 brought mixed feelings for his fans, and when he announced his retirement, they were left cold for almost indefinitely. This was not a welcome development from his community, but at the time, there was nothing they could do to stop him from undertaking this process. His heart was set on it, and nothing was going to stop him from fulfilling it. However, to everyone's greatest surprise, in 2022, it was announced that he would perform at the Rototom Sunsplash Festival in Spain and on the Welcome to Jamrock cruise in December. He announced 3 shows in California, intended as a comeback to performing on stage after a hiatus. When fans heard that he announced 3 shows in California, San Francisco on July 22nd, San Diego on July 23rd, and Los Angeles on July 24th, they could not contain their joy, as they had longed for it for what felt like forever. Shortly after, he was seen doing what he knows how to do best, and he further announced other shows, indicating he was on a new level and needed to stay there for a while. This was some good news, and fans looked forward to more to come. Burning wasn't just a regular reggae artist. He had a love for good music and made sure to give his fans all they asked for, and even more than they didn't ask for. Over the years, no one has reported any information about a feud or a possible altercation that may have occurred behind the scenes. He maintained a private yet impactful life, and it was never on record that he was a bitter man. But when the news of him letting off his chest those who had hurt him so deeply to the point that he had them in his bad books, the whole reggae community stood still. Rumors or truth? The news flying around that Burning Spear, the phenomenal reggae artist, mentioned 9 artists he hated the most isn't something fans could shrug off. Instead, it was quite surprising to them. The timing of the exposition wasn't the issue, but how he even got into a public display, or perhaps a behind-the-scenes outburst that led to his conclusions. To fans, it was quite strange, as the man they knew before now had always been a calm personality who believed that peace is priceless and that staying together as one family does more good than anything. He has always been an advocate of forgiveness, togetherness, and mind-blowing unity. And this wasn't a fluke. His life offline proved all of this, and even in his unique sound, he incorporated what he stood for. But when this whole outburst began, fans couldn't pinpoint where it was actually coming from. Some had the notion that it was just a victim card the man was playing. Nevertheless, his exposition seemed to come from his heart. It was a mix of feelings for his most loyal fans as they began to ask all manner of questions. Given the fact that he has always maintained a quiet life, how come at 80 he is bringing all of these forth? And even though many thought it was a cooked story, on what grounds would he lie again? Enraged, many began to verbalize their anger, which centered on the fact that he had been pretending all this while. The shocking part of the whole story was when he actually mentioned the names of people who, in the past, had shared the same stage with him. These people were no small artists by any means. In the history of reggae music, they have made their marks, but to see them on his list, something must have truly happened. The only recognized person who got into the bad books of Burning Spear was the reggae music distributor Ernie B. This case was one that would have been settled amicably, but it lingered and raised a great deal of controversy. Even though many didn't know this actually happened, Burning had to make this revelation to be free. In 2012, Burning went head-to-head with Ernie B in a way unimaginable. He revealed that Ernie B, a Californian-based distributor of reggae music, had been engaging in piracy at the expense of impoverished reggae artists. It was something he never expected at the time, but the distributor's routine of exploiting people with no one to speak for them was a problem for Burning. Burning has always frowned upon such ventures, and when he saw that Ernie was dragging the hard work of these artists through the mud, he vocalized his disdain. When the whole fracas became intense, he took to his Facebook page and made some remarks. Why didn't many people hear it? Anyhow, these remarks were a confrontation regarding the ongoing challenges reggae artists had to put up with behind the scenes. They are bootlegging all of our music and trying to use the police to get us arrested. Time to unite. It's our music that feeds them. He revealed the dark secrets going on underground, and just as the days went by, he was burdened with the dissatisfaction that plummeted the reggae scene. He was quite serious with all his allegations to the point that he approached the court for a hearing. However, this was after they had issued an unlawful arrest that should not have occurred in the first place. In his legal tender, he threatened to boycott Air Jamaica, Ernie B Reggae Distribution, and Ras Records, whom he described as the worst scammers and bootleggers in the music industry. Ernie B didn't find this funny either, and he defended himself, giving his own side of the story, while the duo went back and forth on this matter. His response was quite honest, and even if one were trying to blame him, upon seeing this whole issue, one would literally believe he was innocent, even though he wasn't. In 19 years of doing business, I have never seen an illegal copy of Burning Spear's music pass through our warehouse, nor have I been offered any, nor have we stocked or sold any. When determining the validity of the claims that Burning Spear music is making against us, it should be duly noted that those same claims are being made against virtually every company with which they have ever dealt. He added, "We continue to hold a deep respect for Spear's legendary works and hope that they will decide to start selling the music again. We understand their frustrations in dealing with this business. We also understand the ease with which some wrong ideas may be adopted, about us, for example, perhaps due to misunderstandings or the spread of malicious rumors." Spear affirmed his position, and the degree to which he held his position was not going to be seconded for anything. To make matters more interesting, his wife joined the fight and, in a straightforward and unbiased manner, shared her opinion about the feud that was taking a toll on her husband. I've seen lawyers act like big-time jerks. Most of us have, but we've also seen scenarios where they are the only victors in the courtroom, as the fallout from the Marley legacy has shown. The law and reggae music are not comfortable bedfellows. And as the fallout from the current economic recession tells us, accounting audits can be as much an art as a science. The reggae singer eventually got his way, but that didn't happen without a small fight. Finally, he let everything go, and everyone returned to their normal business. Unfortunately for Ernie B, the whole issue between him and Burning only died physically, but in his heart, he took it personally. For many years, he said nothing about it until this moment, when he unveiled everything in a disturbing way. However, just when many thought his fracas with other great reggae artists would continue to escalate, His exposé further revealed the kind of personality he was and how he had led in unimaginable ways. In speaking about and revealing things that many knew nothing about, he once mentioned the great legends that had a profound impact on his life. To this day, he never ceases to appreciate the efforts they made to improve his life and make it more fruitful. Meeting Bob Marley for the first time changed his life, and in an orderly manner, it inspired him to draw from the abundance of what he believed was the engine of his course. Spear couldn't deny the fact that meeting Bob Marley was something nature had routed for his benefit, so he could at least draw inspiration from his experiences. At the time, Spear was headed in another direction, while Marley was traveling to his farm via a donkey. Their paths crossed, and the rest is history. In a split second, Bob rolled a spliff, and they began talking about Rastafari, African roots, and reggae music. Burning, in a most orderly way, told Marley he was interested in the music business and that he wanted to explore the sounds that were sitting deep inside of him. Marley advised Burning to visit the studio, and that's how the journey began. He went for auditions and gave his best, and when the producer heard the melody enshrined in his voice, they couldn't help but admire him. As Leroy Sibbles, the producer, was quoted in the Toronto Star, "When we heard them, it was like a joke. It was a new sound, Rasta men coming in from the country. Many people weren't interested, but I liked it, and I worked on the first album they released. I produced it, and I played on it. I got them started." According to the authors of Reggae, The Rough Guide, nothing could have been more uncommercial in 1969 than his debut single on Dodd's Supreme label. Door Peep was a reflective chant, delivered in a way that was frighteningly serious. Barrow and Dalton, 1997. So, when he mentioned Bob Marley, it wasn't about a feud or a fight that happened behind the scenes, but rather a revered truth that made his career beautiful. It is safe to say that Burning Spear wears the emblem of greatness because his predecessors got him on the bus to greatness with their words of inspiration. And ever since, he hasn't slowed down a bit. Why he chose to reveal these important details, even at 80, despite seeming quite skeptical, doesn't change the fact that he is human, and that sometimes we have our own ways of interpreting a situation. Burning Spear. Mentioning names wasn't a lie, but not everyone on the list was an enemy. Some had given him the best advice that helped make him the star he is today. Let's take a good look at his early background and personal life. Early life and personal life. Born Winston Rodney. On March 1st, 1945, he is particularly known as Burning Spear. He was born in St. Anne's Bay, St. Anne, Jamaica. Life in his days was a bit clumsy, as he wasn't always at liberty to do what he wanted. He had to undergo the tutelage of his parents, which helped him in various ways. Growing up in a rural community, Burning was deeply influenced by the sounds of traditional Jamaican music, particularly the spiritual rhythms of Nyabingi drumming and the soulful melodies of gospel music. When he found his roots, he knew there was no way of going back, and he has continued with them to this day. Aside from drawing strength from other reggae artists who had come before him, he was greatly influenced by the teachings of Marcus Garvey. This revered Pan-Africanist leader would profoundly shape Rodney's worldview. Playing through the roots of reggae music wasn't always as rosy as many thought, but he faced several seasons of discomfort that tried to diminish the potential that had always resided inside him. Garvey's messages of black pride, self-reliance, and liberation resonated deeply with Rodney and sponsored the central themes that were always present in his songs. From the moment he began walking the paths of reggae music, he became involved in numerous activities that altered his perspective, and although it was not revealed, he continuously poured his heart into them. It was also revealed that, as Rodney was growing up, he had the opportunity to come into contact with R&B, soul, and jazz music transmitted by U.S. radio stations whose broadcasts reached Jamaica. As time went on, Burning knew he needed a companion, and that living alone was a time bomb waiting to explode. After thinking it through for many days, he got married to Sonia. Their love life could not be easily dismissed, but it exhibited great qualities worthy of all commendation. The couple met at a concert in 1975 and haven't failed to live life together. Sonia Rodney. I met Spear at a concert in 1975. He did in Queens. My sister was the one who knew about Burning Spear. I was 15 years old and a single mother. We became very good friends. Spear was very shy and was not looking for attention from anyone. This duo evolved from friends to lovers and got married in a manner that spoke of greatness. Sonia, since meeting him, has not only been his wife, but has also played several admirable roles. Her involvement in the business aspects of Burning Spear's music allows him to focus on the creative and performative elements, ensuring that his message remains undiluted and powerful. Burning Spear and Sonia Rodney have children, although specific details about them are kept private. Rodney's approach to privacy suggests a desire to protect his family from the scrutiny and pressures that often come with celebrity status. However, family holds great significance for him, as evidenced by his music, which frequently explores themes of legacy, continuity, and the transmission of wisdom across generations. Burning has truly made an impact on reggae music, and today lives as an icon who is a role model for many generations. Do you think Burning Spear is still hiding something from the public and that his expose was only a minute fraction of what he has inside of him? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as there are lots of amazing videos waiting for you. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.